But in any case, I'm excited about this session because Carl and I have done some sessions before that have become very, very popular in the tens of thousands of views after doing our sessions together. So for some reason, we have some decent chemistry there, Carl. But it's really kind of cool because you're kind of like, you know, a little bit about everything in video conferencing. So it's really fun to talk to you. So I appreciate you being on here. I don't know if you had a chance to introduce yourself when I rebooted real quick, but you're the U.S. Director of Product for Enterprise Division of rAVe Information, and rAVe has exploded with you know, literally 10 years ago. The only thing I knew rAVe for was this little adapter I had for my laptop that allowed me to ingest video in my laptop. And now you have all sorts of really cool products. And you're the leader, I would argue, the leader in PTZ cameras, especially in higher education. I see more rAVe cameras out there than any other. So congratulations on the work that you've done.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, no, I've been in the industry for a long time, kind of grew up in the industry, you know, going off for over 26 years now. So yeah, it's been very interesting to see how the whole industry has evolved and changed and where it's going.
It is crazy how fast you guys have done what you've done. And I think you're a big part of it because people like the way that you engage with them and teach them about products. And I'm going to actually have you go back in history a little bit, because back when I first got in the industry, video conferencing was talked about like crazy, and everybody was talking about how exciting the future of video conferencing was. But, you know, honestly, it didn't work really well. I remember a guy by the name of Scott Scherer, who was a really good friend of mine, who knew as much about who knew as much about video conferences as anybody I know. And he had a really good point. He's like, it's not the hardware companies that are having the problem out there. It's the phone companies that can't provide solid ISDN lines and T1 lines to make video conferencing happen. So I'd love for you to go back and kind of talk about what happened and what fixed all of that.
Yeah, no, it's been a great progression because, yeah, back in the days, you know, video conferencing was really only in like the corporate boardrooms. And usually it was just, you know, the higher ups that really wanted to figure out, you know, whether somebody on the far end was actually honest or not, because they wanted to be able to see their facial expressions, be able to determine and, you know, be able to call them out if, you know, they thought they were lying to them. But now it's progressed on, like you were saying, going over from the ISDN line days to, you know, every video call probably costs a couple of $100 in long distance lines. And then it slowly transitioned over to the H.323 and SIP-based devices that were out there. And that's when Polycom and others,
Cisco,
like Lifesize and others, they were kind of dominating the market back then. And it was great because it brought video conferencing down, you know, from the boardroom down to the large, you know, conference rooms or medium-sized rooms within campuses. But now we start seeing a slow progression to another era that came in, which was, you know, cloud computing. And, you know, people started moving over to the service providers, started going over to Zoom and others. And that's where we started coming into the market a little bit stronger, because that's what enabled people to be able to put together a conference room and you know, piece part it and be able to get conference rooms together with USB devices using, you know, standardized off of PCs or Macs. But now we're seeing a new era now. We're slowly transitioning to another era of video conferencing, I feel. And, you know, that's kind of being pushed by the industry altogether, or the tech industry altogether. That's going with AI enhancements. And now we're seeing
I want to talk about some of the AI that you've used. But first, I want to congratulate you, because the partners that you have built to help make AI tracking and also help make audio and video together in rooms has been critical. You've got some of the big brands that you've partnered with here, everyone from Shure to Biamp to Clear One, rAVe, you know, Audio Technica, Sennheiser. I mean, all the big audio companies. You've made it where you've opened up your connectivity such that your cameras are communicating with their mics are communicating with your cameras, which gives you this extra quality of tracking. Now, you brought up AI. AI is sort of, in my opinion, primed to replace everything. And I'll tell you something that I saw recently. we are not too far away. And I know this is going to sound crazy, but this is something we will do a session on. Maybe Megan will invite me to Emerging Tech Day. We could talk about this. We are less than 3 years away where this is no lie. Remember I said this, 2024, end of 24. We are less than 3 years away where you will be able to attend a meeting without actually attending a meeting. Your AI will be there. People will think you're there. That person will respond the way that you would normally respond on an online meeting, but you don't actually have to be there. And it is actually summating the meeting for you in real time. So it makes you a lot more efficient. I saw some technology from a couple of brands in our industry that showed me exactly that. And I know exactly how it's going to happen. But yet, you still have to have cameras, you still have to have microphones, and you still have to have these meetings, which I think is kind of interesting, Carl.
Yeah, no, it's actually kind of funny because when I worked at Blue Jeans, Krish, who is the one of the founders over there, he was talking about that. He was talking about having an avatar that would kind of supplement your attendance and pretty much have something that would not only summarize the meeting for you, but like pull you in if you really had to be there. And
really close to this, Carl. Let me tell you what I saw recently blew me away. I'm like, when somebody said that to me and just made the statement, I was like, come on. But then when I actually saw it working with me in the meeting, I was like, this is pretty awesome. So I'm very excited about where our industry is going. But I want to come back and talk about how you've integrated AI, because one of the things that you've done is some of the even at the simplest level is your AI hybrid mode tracking functionality that you've added in your that is substantial, because one thing that people don't realize about this is that this is AI on the edge. So it doesn't require an in-room PC to do all this stuff, which means that you can use any of these cloud management systems. You can remove the AI from Zoom and Teams and allow rAVe to manage this for you and get some really good stuff. So when the guy was talking about from Northwestern was talking about how they put cameras in every room, this is a reason for you to put multiple cameras in a room, because now you can basically capture everything simultaneously with just a couple of cameras.
Oh yeah, no, it's definitely something to empower every user persona in a meeting. So when you think about that, when you look at what happens in a meeting, you have the presenters, you have the attendees, and usually you have people in the back making sure the meeting runs smoothly. You know what I mean? So, really important meeting, you usually have a meeting moderator, somebody that makes sure that everybody's muted, make sure that the cameras are framed up correctly, recall presets and all that kind of stuff. And that's what I think for us as a camera manufacturer or video conferencing hardware manufacturer is to be able to, help facilitate that user persona as far as the moderator. With the camera tracking options, that's been a great one for us. I mean, we have cameras that would be able to figure out, whether somebody is walking around, whether you need to be able to include like a whiteboard with that scenario, but being able to have a lower administrative cost within a deployment of a video conferencing network. I think that's one of the big goals for a lot of us right now, because usually when I worked in IT and I worked having to moderate those rooms and all that kind of stuff, it takes a toll on you, man. And so to be able to automate that, especially with multiple cameras, when you talk about.
You think about it, it wasn't even 10 years ago, we had to have an AV operator in a room to do exactly what we're showing here on the screen. You had to have a person actually sitting there running it. And now with one camera, with AI on the edge, you can actually do all of this without an AV operator in there, and simultaneously capture the video and the audio, put it into Panopto automatically, as they were talking about, and even serving it up on a learning management system like Canvas or Sakai or something like that. All that sort of wrapped in the rAVe flavor options.
Oh, exactly. And it's like, what you talked about, putting that processing on the edge, right now, I got devices connected up and I'm using my laptop to be able to power this meeting. And so, it kind of negates the need to have processing power within, either the conference room or the classroom or wherever you have it. Having that processing on the edge frees up processing power. And I can tell you right now, one of the big people that like that are the service providers, because then they don't have to put as much processing power in the cloud, or you're not using it from your PC itself. Because, Sometimes you could be in a meeting and Windows Update will kick on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Your processing power will get hammered or something like that, or a security scan. So being able to separate that power out and have that computation done on the edges is definitely more powerful.
And speaking of which, by the way, just last week you guys announced that every single AVer product is now going to integrate NDI, which means that all the existing NDI capabilities that are out there and all the new stuff, you're going to have that sort of integrated protocol connectivity and control.
Yeah, no, it's one of our strives to make things easier to connect in the sense from a physical perspective. A lot of the new products that we're coming out with, we're kind of focused more on the ease of use, or to lower the administrative cost to be able to deploy it and install it. And so that usually means fewer connections, but having to get a low latency video protocol enabled within all of our Pro AV cameras. That's been a huge one for us. That's been really good, especially when you start getting into those breakout rooms, the big training rooms, breakout rooms, auditoriums, things of that nature.
Yeah. By the way, the last session, I thought it was really interesting how both the guys said they really didn't care much about 4K. But what's interesting is you're correct, and the remote participants don't need 4K. But it sure is nice to be able to capture the raw content in 4K, because then, number one, the AI has an easier capability of breaking things up. So, for example, in some of our classrooms, we actually shoot an entire room view, but actually can have an inset camera using one camera follow the presenter as they're moving around the room. So we can sort of mimic two cameras by only having one camera. Also, when you have an original copy of a guest speaking and stuff, having that master in 4K is nice. So although we're not presenting, he's correct, we're not presenting in 4K. And it's unfortunate that at Northwestern, most professors are still presenting in 4:3. If they would switch them to Mac, I'm convinced, Carl, they would not use 4:3. But in any case, luckily most people are 16:9 now. But he's right. They're going to use 1080p at the highest resolution most of the time anyway. So they don't need that. But I want to touch on some of the specific things that you've done in and around education. We've got some B-roll to put up here as we go through some of these. You've got smart framing, you've got audio fencing, which is that awesome demo that you and I did.
That was such a good demo.
I mean, that thing has gotten so popular. But let's hold that image up there for just a second, because basically with audio fencing, that's sort of like view that you see there that's not grayed out. It's only capturing what's in the view of the camera. I think that was a game changer, because not only do I see this as changing things in the meeting room, but I also see this in the co-working space where there's lots of people on calls at the same time, being able to eliminate some of that ambient noise that's in there, that's in the meeting, that you typically get invaded into a meeting space. But I think that your smart framing functionality is very popular. Your audio framing functionality. Talk about audio framing for just a second.
Yeah, so it's kind of like what you mentioned before. I mean, it's a little bit like, audio tracking is, being able to talk. The camera zooms in on you and, frames you up, or, kind of does that. Somebody else talks, the camera's going to move and you're going to see that person talk. But the far end sees that movement. And remember, like what you talked about as far as having that 4K image and being able to manipulate the image within, that frame. So with audio framing, what the camera will do is it'll zoom out a little bit and, use a 4K image. But then when other people talk, it will kind of pause me, move to that person, and dissolve into into that other person talking. So with audio framing, it's a little bit more like a director's cut. A bit. And so it allows us to be able to give a more natural look for the far end, so they don't get motion sickness for everything else. Now, one of the big things that we're really
good groups of people and individuals when you have a main presenter, but also when you're moving around a room. When you have a main presenter, you can basically hone in on the presenter, but then go back to the room. But it also works and gives individual shots when you have a room filled with individual people that are just talking, right?
Oh yeah. No, that's some of the things that we've kind of been working on, because one thing is being able to have audio fencing, for instance. Right now, currently with our products, you turn on audio fencing. That's kind of the only mode like some of the video bars would be in. But what we're looking to do is being able to marry or get multiple AI features enabled. So being able to do like the audio framing with audio fencing. So if you're in that big breakout room in there scenario where you want to cut out the background noise, but then also have the voice track at the same time, is something that we're looking to do to implement pretty soon here.
Yeah, and you have your own version of an AI gallery shot as well, where you're able to use, because you're doing AI on the edge, you're sort of able to create your own versions of layouts that are not reliant on Zoom or Teams, and you have the same layout regardless of the platform, and you're not relying on the platforms, which is nice because you're not having to use their cloud management system.
Oh yeah, everybody loves that Brady Bunch view.
Yeah, exactly.
And being able to take out the excess conference room, view that a lot of people, when you're looking at somebody on the far end and, they just seem really small, you really can't get to see whether, they're reacting to what you're telling them or not. With that gallery view, if you see them on the far end in that view, it definitely crops them, manipulates the image to be able to put it into that layout that's better for people on the far end.
Yeah, because then they can see where everyone's sitting, but they also get an individual view from everyone in the room, and that's all done with one camera, which is nice. Now you can use multiple cameras, but it's actually done with one camera, and you don't actually have to use multiple cameras. Now let's go back to the classroom, because ultimately in the classroom the same functionality works, but most of the time there's one presenter, a professor, a teacher, and then you have students that are asking questions, right? And in that case, because of that scenario, we need two cameras. So that you need the primary camera on the presenter, the teacher all the time. You need the secondary camera shooting the students, and to give and he's right. We don't encourage students to join remotely, but the fact of the matter is students do get sick, and there are athletes that are traveling a lot and others. So we want to give them the ability to kind of feel like they're in the classroom. So student asks a question, raises their hand, asks a question. These same smart AI features work in a classroom just like they would work in a meeting room, do they not? Even though we're using two cameras, or do we have to use a different processor at that point in time?
Yeah, so I mean, to be able to, it really does depend on what will actually, deliver the image and be able to say, hey, this person's asking a question, switch to that camera there. And so that's where we came out with one of our products that I'll probably talk a little bit later on, which is our MT300, but that will allow you to connect up multiple cameras. And if one of those cameras is already doing the processing for that smart composition, where it's putting everybody in the Brady Bunch view, having that on the audience would be a powerful feature that we notice a lot of people are doing now. And then having the lecturer use one of our rAVe audio, tracking cameras, it makes for a very nice, smooth delivery.
So we're showing the MT300N now, which basically is a USB switch that allows you to connect multiple cameras into it. And then since your AI is on the edge, the processing is all still done in the camera, sending a message to the platform, whether it's Zoom or Teams, or in this case, even Meet, and actually doing the smart framing in the platform itself, or is it being done in the MT300?
Well, the MT300N is not only like a video switcher, so it will allow you to change the layout of it, but what it'll allow you to do is open up the APIs to those third-party audio providers that we were talking about. So now what you would be able to do is use our cameras. So let's just say that you wanted to use our Cam 520 Pro 3 or Cam 550. You would be able to have one of those cameras use that smart composition, and then you could use one of our rAVe cameras, like our TR535, to be able to actually zoom in on the lecturer. And so you would have the flexibility to say, okay, that the TR camera, have that be one of the main, hybrid mode type cameras. You could have one of our Cam 520 Pro 3s, be the smart gallery view. Heck, even throw in a third camera and say that one will be the voice tracking camera for the audience that will kick off because either a Sennheiser or a Shure lobes opened up within their microphones, and switch to preset 2 type scenario.
And you can even use, technically, you could even use a video bar for this application as your second or third camera because it's always there.
You can. I've used it before.
Yeah,
it'll take in either a USB or an HDMI video stream for that MTV.
Yeah, and that's nice that you do have both available, by the way, USB and HDMI. Here's a question that just came up from Gavin Coetzer. Seeing such a rapid pace with newer model cameras being developed by AVE, would AVE look at would AVE consider a buyback program encouraging institutions to migrate from the older versions of PTZ cameras to new versions? And I guess the easiest way to do that would be to add an MT300 in. I mean, couldn't you add an MT300 into an existing room where you didn't have a AI-based camera, or would that work?
I mean, yeah, you can, but I mean, it would really depend on what kind of camera as well. I mean, because, we came out with the Cam 570 and the Cam 550 almost about 2 years ago, but yet just within the last 2 months, we implemented a smart composition within those cameras. So we're still enabling.
Isn't that firmware upgradable?
It was, yeah. We're still adding on to some of the older model cameras. But yeah, it really does depend on, which model they are, how old they were, but we're always flexible, and we'll definitely work with you, especially through, Disty channel.
Yeah, Gavin, if you can't get right to the right rep, contact me at Gary@rAVEagency.com. I'll get you in touch with Carl. He happens to be in South Africa, and I think this is a common question that people are going to ask because, the truth of the matter is, Carl, as you know, we all rushed in the university community to upgrade the classrooms, fix the audio, fix the video in 2021 to get back open. But now it's 2024. The truth of the matter is 3 years later, we didn't have AI on the edge back then. So I think things have changed. And obviously, in a 3 or 5 year cycle at a university, a lot of these universities are going to upgrade. I also know about some of the case studies that you've done. Seneca Polytech as a university is one that you guys have done. I mean, you've already worked with a lot of universities on some of these upgrades and sort of engineering the classroom so that you don't have to do as many hardware upgrades and more maybe software upgrades. University of Wisconsin Parkside, that's a great lecture hall where you've got multiple cameras capturing, and that's a good example of true lecture capture in that particular case. Indiana State University, where you actually have a lectern in addition to having a lecture capture, but also a venue where they're using it for outside guests coming in to speak, but they want to capture it at a higher resolution and share it with the rest of the university. So you're doing not just UC applications, not just video conferencing applications, but your cameras are quality enough. You're using the imagers just like Broad. I don't know if I'm allowed to say the brand, but I will say that the imager brand that you're using is the same brand that's used in a lot of broadcast PTZ cameras as well. So you have the quality to be able to capture broadcast quality images, even in classroom applications.
Yeah, that's always been one of our goals, especially when we come out with different camera types. When we first came out with our the first USB camera that we came out with Cam 520 back in the day, that was really geared to be at that like a Sony level of camera image quality. Right. And so that's one of our, foundations, I guess you could say, is to have that great video quality. Because as we were talking about earlier with, the HSOT 323 and SIP-based era, those cameras are actually really good. The quality of the Polycom cameras, the Tamper cameras, life size, those were really good cameras. And then
they were
once we started getting into the
cameras,
USB peripheral side, everybody was using webcams to be able to connect those up. And so, getting those optical zoom cameras, are always going to get a better image out of an optical zoom camera compared to a fixed lens.
So I want to ask you about future technology releases, because it seems to me that when I look at camera companies, you're always the first one with the new features. But before we do, I want to ask you about the Phone 700, which I think is probably one of the best kept secrets in your organization. Everyone focuses on what you're doing with your camera technology, but talk about the Phone 700 with Cam really quickly.
Yeah, I mean, because, we've been working on audio technologies from our video bars, and then we had the Phone 540, which was a boundary type speakerphone. But what we found is that a lot of people were trying to put these on the ceiling. And so, going on with our directive is being able to have an easy to install solution. We came out with the Phone 700, which is a ceiling speakerphone. And so not only does it have 18 unidirectional microphones, or beamforming microphones, I should say. But what it does is it goes to a DSP hub that allows you to connect up 2 other cameras to it. And so from that hub, you could also connect up to a monitor and be able to have not only video, audio, and monitor connectivity on one USB cable, like the way I have right now on my laptop. And so, yeah, that Phone 700, great solution. That you could daisy chain 3 other speaker phones and enable great quality audio with, automatic gain control, noise cancellation, all that kind of stuff. Working that in conjunction with the audio features that work with the audio providers, it gives a really great audio solution.
I'll tell you where I see that. For those of you who are watching that are in the K through 12 space, if you want an easy way to drop in audio conferencing and video conferencing into a classroom in an all-in-one system, that's a product you ought to take a look at. Or if you're in a university and you have small classrooms, this is a great sort of all-in-one solution there as an option too. All right, I want to go back to my, I want to ask you about future stuff because like I said, you're always on the leading edge. And I know you know what I probably saw with regard to allowing you to attend a meeting without actually being at the meeting. Now, part of that is, some really cool future AI stuff. And one of the students that was in the classroom when they saw this with me said, it's interesting. Why does all the AI look kind of fake? And the person's response from Adobe was this: if we make it look too real, it will scare you too much. So we're intentionally making it look fake so that you can tell the difference between AI and real stuff. But we're ready to give you the real stuff, but we don't want to scare you too quickly. And I thought, man, that was a genius response. But what I saw when I saw this was real. Like, it looked real. It had the same colorimetry as my normal camera would have, same inflection of voice and look. So tell me where Aver is going to play in this space. What's the future? What can we expect from Aver?
Well, I mean, so, again, it's one of those types of scenarios where, we are looking to replace out that user persona within meeting rooms as far as moderators right now.
Yeah.
When you look at, the average attendees that come within meetings, right now, there is features that we have in there to be able to enhance the video image. And that's usually when you go into the settings, you can change white balance, you can change color tones, you can change saturation. And usually people nail down a room, but as the sun rises on the east, sets on the west, a room environment is very dynamic and changes up. And usually people would have to go in there and change things up for them to make themselves look good. I want to be able to use AI to be able to capture environmental data to be able to get the best quality image for people. But that's if they
don't know how to set white. So if they don't know how to set white balance and they go in and the camera is smart enough to know what's happening with the room at the time of day.
Because there's auto settings right now and there's other ones, but to be able to actually, use that intelligence to be able to, not allow people to, or not have to have people go in there and change those settings. So I know that's where we're aiming towards right now. But as you said, with AI functionality, the way I see it, multiple cameras within a room that you wouldn't see is something that I could see from a future standpoint. Because right now, and you can probably remember older cameras that had audio tracking with multiple cameras on there. As soon as the cameras move and see people in the room get distracted, they look and they're like, "Why is it moving like that?" And so for us is to be able to not only have cameras that have a low profile, not be seen from a hardware perspective. So when they're in a room, they don't get, distracted by that, but to have it work in conjunction to get the best image quality for people.
Well, if you think about how far cameras have come on mobile phones, and you think about how good they are and how long the zoom throw and capability is, capture, I should say, is we are probably at a spot where you could get really creative on cameras and strategic, almost James Bond, like put cameras around the facility and not even know that they're there, and then sum them together to be whatever kind of meeting you need it to be, right? Just have sort of like you're capturing the room and you're summing together only the pieces of the room that make up that particular meeting. So if you have a class of 50 students in there, it's capturing that. But if you have a meeting with 4 people in there, it's capturing that as if it was 2 separate AV setups.
Yeah, the way I always look at it is, video conferencing could go one of 2 ways. We could either be like Star Wars, where we get hologram images, or we could be like Star Trek, where it doesn't matter where you're at and what you who you're talking to. It's going to connect up on a big screen. You don't see cameras, and it's always framed up well. And so I'm rooting for Star Trek level of features.
I don't know, man. I'm a big Star Wars fan, so I'm kind of pulling for the hologram too.
I would not mind having a R2D2 unit around to help me facilitate that. But
I've got one. Hold on, where is my R2D2? I've got one around here somewhere in my office. I was going to grab it for you, but you have to deal with my BB-8 back here, my blue and red BB-8. Oh, nice. Wait, here you go. Hold on. There you go. There you go.
Oh, there you go.
I beg to disagree on this because
this is where we will have a debate.
That's right. As you know, was the key character in all of the Star Wars. But anyway, I don't know if people knew this, but Star Wars was actually about R2D2, right? He's the only one that was in all 9 movies. But in any case, hey, Carl, hey, I really appreciate this. You've been great. I mean, I like your enthusiasm first off, but I like the way that you sort of like explain things. And look, if you haven't experienced audio fencing, if you haven't experienced smart framing and audio smart composition, the functionalities that AI has afforded Aver to build into their cameras on the edge, you should contact Aver, your distributor for Aver, whoever, and get a demo. Carl will do demos. His team will do demos for you. You can check them out, averusa.com. It's easy to do these demos because you're going to see what you'd see remotely as a recording. And and as I said, they've partnered with all the audio companies. So no matter whose mic system you're using, you can stick their cameras in there and it'll automatically start tracking using the mic system. So you don't even have to have the AI functionality turned on if you didn't want to, but I think you will. Carl, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I appreciate you joining me, man. And of course, if you want to connect with Carl, click on his name in the registration page or wherever the agenda for today is. Connect you to his LinkedIn profile and